Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today, as you can see, of course, not only do we have another review, but we've also got a pretty tall box because we can only see the lower part of this dinosaur. We've got ourselves a massive sauropod from PNSO, and you can see that box goes up pretty high. That's definitely a long neck on our gorgeous PNSO Alamosaurus. The box is pretty much as it usually is when it comes to PNSO. You can see the side sports some very interesting information, and then unfortunately I can't read because it's not in English, but there is some information on the side. Same thing on the other side, but this time we can see that we have some English occurring over here. And then of course, again, the pretty much same thing over here on the other side, except we actually have the name over here, which is Samuel the Alamosaurus, and again, the same image, basically, that we had just seen on the first side. So, let's go ahead and pop this box open and check it out. First of all, we have the poster, and I'm always excited to see the poster of any PNSO release. So, if we go ahead and open this up, if it continues to work a little bit. There we go. You can see we've got a gorgeous image here of an Alamosaurus, actually two Alamosaurus, just kind of walking along. And I love these images. I love this artwork and these posters because, like, specifically this version where we just have some super cool art that was created by PNSO. That's always my preferred version of these posters. Sometimes they'll give us a little dino toy photography, which is also really cool because the models are so good. You know, it actually looks just like some regular PNSO art anyway, but you can see this looks really cool. Also a nice paint scheme for it on this image, a nice color scheme. I think it looks really nice. So definitely a beautiful poster as always. And then, interestingly enough, we have two booklets for some reason. I'm not sure why. It appears as though one is probably the Chinese version. Seems that way. And then the other one is the English version. I don't know why we got two in this one, but interesting. Regardless, you can see again, we've got super cool images and stuff. Another really neat paint scheme. It's impressive how many paint schemes they come up with just for one dinosaur. Not to mention, it's almost all that same sort of patterning that we have on this one, repeatedly used throughout the others, but different tones of color. But again, you've got all kinds of really cool images, information. You can even see a size chart in here for the Alamosaurus, which shows you how absolutely gigantic this dinosaur was. But these booklets are always super cool, filled with loads of really neat stuff and nice images, and absolutely worth a read if you happen to purchase this model. And then our Alamosaurus itself, and it is so big, or at least as far as the height goes, we can't even really get it into screen correctly in the spot that we were in. So there is our sauropod. It looks as majestic as it gets with that really nice curve in the tail, and definitely a very impressive model as a whole from PNSO. It's not every day we get a PNSO sauropod, so we need to really soak this one up. But I think they did a great job on this. However, one thing that some people have mentioned previously as a complaint about this model is the fact that this is not 1/35th scale, and most of what PNSO releases usually is. And I have to defend PNSO on that one because, like, do you realize how big this model would be if it were true 1/35th scale? I don't think it would have been possible for PNSO to actually release this species if they had gone with that scale, because the cost to make the model, the cost to ship the model, and then, of course, the price tag on it would have been, you know, pretty high. So not many people would have been able to afford it, whereas now, with this more reasonable size, it's definitely going to be something that most people can probably afford, or at least, you know, over time save up enough money to grab. Again, I have to absolutely defend PNSO when it comes to their decision to not go with the 1/35th scale on this. Even though it would have been super cool to see, it's just something that could be a little bit of a tricky situation for them had they gone that route. Regardless, this thing looks absolutely gorgeous here in person. Definitely one of the nicest sauropod models I think I've ever seen. So let's jump to a closer look and check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Alamosaurus, you can see it looks really good, and PNSO did a very good job when it comes to the actual paint application. You know, something that we're pretty used to at this point because their paint apps have been honestly out of this world over the last probably like 2 years. They have just been knocking it out of the park. I would say over the course of 2023, they've provided us some of their best paint applications when it comes to realism. And you can see that here again on this one. The actual paint application is incredibly smooth, and they've also chosen a really cool, very natural color scheme for this one. We can see actually like some pinkish tones here that lead up from this lighter brown, and then lead up here. They transition to a pinkish tone up around the eye, which looks really cool. The eye is also very nicely painted considering its size. That is a pretty small eye, so it's pretty impressive to see how nicely painted it is. PNSO definitely did a great job when it comes to the head sculpt and the paint job of it when it comes to this model. You can also see the nostrils up here on the snout of the dinosaur. We can see a grayish tone, a nice dark gray up here on the head, and as you lead closer to the snout, you can see we've got like a brownish tone right there. Another thing that's pretty interesting is you can see the teeth right here of the dinosaur sort of exposed, and that as well, again, that's a very, very small mouth that we have for the Alamosaurus, so it's pretty impressive that the teeth look as good as they do. And again, if we turn it around, look at how nicely done that is. Those teeth are painted to perfection. Crazy impressive paintwork on the part of PNSO. We can also see the ear for our Alamosaurus. And then as we lead down here, as I said, we transition to a brownish tone, but you can also see we've got a nice dark wash present on this figure, which, again, PNSO, I think, has perfected the wash. Through the course of this year, they've been hammering out amazing figure after amazing figure, and including that really nice dark wash that I think not only highlights all of the detail, but also adds a nice dose of realism. You can really see how nice that wash makes the, sculpt. It just looks so much more realistic. You can see a ton of skin detail here as well. You can see all sorts of skin wrinkles and stuff, as well as some really nice scale detail as you move through. And then as you lead down here into the neck, we start to pick up this very cool striping effect moving down, because the neck primarily is like that very light sort of a brownish or kind of like a tan sort of coloration. But then we have these gray stripes leading down along the course of the neck, and they're so nicely applied. They're very, very smooth and natural when it comes to the application of the paint. And I love the flashiness of the neck without giving us too overly flashy tones of color. They've kept it very natural when it comes to the coloration, but still found a way to give us that really cool patterning where it stands out in contrast to the lighter tones here really nicely. And then again, you can see how impressive the actual, not only the throat here area of the dinosaur is, but also the skin texture of the throat as you move through. And how nicely applied that dark wash is, making sure to not only give us some variation of color to the dinosaur, but also, again, highlight all of that detail in perfect fashion. You can see as we move down, of course, the neck definitely gets a lot thicker as we get closer to the body. Man, that is so unbelievably impressive. That is some of the most impressive looking detailing I've seen. There's just so much going on when it comes to slight wrinkling and creasing in the skin moving along the underside of the neck and throat of this model. And then again, as you move up here, you can see how the striping just sort of transitions away very nicely and naturally as you move down. But then as we lead down here into the body, actually, first of all, right here in the neck, you start to pick up these osteoderms moving down the course of the neck, and you can see some just remain the coloration of the dinosaur, like the grays and light tan coloration, but some are actually painted with a brownish tone. And then as we lead down a little bit further, you start to see those pick up into more of like a ridge-like kind of an effect, and you can see they again continue to have that brownish tone of color to them. But also as we lead down into the body, not only do we pick up that coloration, but you can see the gray then overtakes the body, and we mostly have a gray for this area of the body. Of course, we can also see it transition away as we lead into the stomach. It does lighten up, and I love that there's like this really nice brown that kind of follows along that border of the gray into the stomach region, basically transitioning these two colors. It looks really, really nice. Another thing that I really like about this model, and I did not notice it prior on any of the promotional images or anything, is in this grayish tone of the body, there is actually a wash present, kind of like a beige sort of wash. I don't know how good it's picking up on camera, but in hand I can notice it's really subtle with the way it's applied, but it just helps to kind of give the sauropod a little bit of like a dirty look, and I think again a little bit more of a realistic look. As you move down, you can kind of make out the shoulder blade there protruding from the skin. You'll also notice tons of osteoderms all over the side of the dinosaur there, pretty much everywhere as you move down. More really nice creasing right there. As you lead up from the leg into the stomach, you could just basically see how the dinosaur is taking a step and it's wrinkling the skin there of the stomach region. As you move down, you can really see the muscles tensing in the front leg here of the Alamosaurus. You can also see the elbow in the back, and then as you lead down, some more creasing in the wrist, as well as a really nice looking foot sculpt, and you can see the nail sticking out here over on the side, painted with a brownish tone. Has a pretty genuine sharp look. You can definitely see the other one right here from this point. Also has a little bit of a satin shine to it, which is nice to see. Moving back up here, you can see again that dark wash, and I love that they've given the grayish tone kind of like a beige wash, but then down here we continue to have that dark, I don't know if it's like a black or more of like a dark brown wash, and again just making it look so incredibly realistic. And if you get nice and close, you could just really appreciate how good all of the skin detail is on this. Again, more wrinkling and creasing as you lead up here into the thigh of the dinosaur. You can see the muscle definition, but again, it's not overly defined to the point where it would look even remotely shrink wrapped. But you can also get nice and close and see how good the scale detail looks. It's very fine, but again, we have all of those osteoderms all over the place as well. And then you lead down and you can see the kneecap here, as well as some more impressive skin detail right there in the knee area. You've got the calf muscle, and you've also got a really nice foot sculpt. Again, the nails are sculpted and painted really beautifully. And another thing I like about this side here specifically is the fact that you can see the rear part of the dinosaur is supporting most of the weight right now on this leg. You can see how that leg is picking up over there, so you can see how the muscles are tensed so nicely because it is bearing so much weight on that leg. And then as we lead out into the tail, we return to that same sort of design that we had up in the neck, where we have that gray striping and then the lighter tone basically as the primary body color here moving out, but we continue to have those ridges moving along the tail here with that brownish tone. You know, as we lead down, you can see they start out in 2 rows, but as we lead down, they form one individual line here following along the spinal column, and then we have that really nice elegant curve to the tail as you lead out, giving it almost like that whip-like look as the dinosaur is walking along, and we continue to have that striping as we lead the entire way out. As you lead along the underside, you see some more really nice paintwork, and again, more of that dark wash present. You can also see the cloaca is present, and they've given it like a little variation of color around the cloaca, almost like a light brown or like a pinkish brown, and you do see more of that as you lead here on the underside. You see it basically under the legs showing up really nicely, which I think is always a great touch, because PNSO just puts so much into the paintwork of their models just to make it as lifelike and realistic as possible. So I always think that those little additions of paintwork shows how much PNSO actually genuinely cares about the realism of their product. And then if we turn it around, you're going to see pretty much the same thing again as you move down the course of the neck. The dinosaur does have its head turned a little bit to the right, but it's not enough to drastically change the appearance to the skin detail or anything. And we, of course, have that same style to the pattern and patterning as we move down the course of the neck. Again, the same type of detail, all beautifully brought out with that dark wash. Again, we lead down into the body, and this is where we're going to see just a little bit of difference, because now you can see how the opposing leg is picking up off of the ground, whereas now this leg is planted and supporting most of the weight of the front part of the dinosaur. And you can see, just like we saw on the other leg, you know, on the back side of the dinosaur on the other side, you can see how the muscles are absolutely tensing and flexing because we have so much weight supporting on this leg. Definitely really nice minor details like that, I think, that just make models go from looking really cool to absolutely amazing. You can now see the claw on the other foot that we couldn't really see earlier too well. You can also see that the lighter tone follows along the inside of the leg as you lead down, and that follows through on all of the legs. But you can also see how this leg is trailing, again taking a step, so you've got the skin stretching here off of the stomach as the dinosaur is walking along. Like I said, PNSO absolutely delivers when it comes to fine detail on their models. Like, I would say they probably have the best skin detail out of any company producing dinosaur models today, and it's continuous. Like, you always see it on every model, and just right there, I think that's one of the best examples of that. But as you lead down, again, really nice looking foot sculpt. You've got the toes again sculpted, and as well as the nails, and again the nails painted with that brown, and then we lead up again to that really nice curve to the tail. So that is easily one of the most impressive sauropod models I have ever seen, and I really hope PNSO continues to release more sauropods just like this moving into the future. As far as a size goes, even if it is not 1/35th scale, it is still pretty darn big. So for a length from the tail to the head, you're looking at about 18 inches or about 46 centimeters. Of course, it could be a little bit longer if the tail wasn't curved the way it was, so that eliminates a little bit of length, but still, again, pretty impressive in the length department. And then for a height, you're looking at just under 11.5 inches or a little over 29 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being next to our Alamosaurus from PNSO. And you can see, again, exactly as I said, it does sport a pretty darn, pretty impressive size. Definitely a tall figure for sure, and you would, of course, expect that considering the species. But for another comparison, we have both of the recently released Yanchuanosaurus models from PNSO, because they did give us two different species of the Yanchuanosaurus, and you can see both of them are quite a bit smaller than our much taller Alamosaurus. And then for another comparison, I think one of the quickest and probably most effective ways to show a comparison with another PNSO release to give you an idea of the size is with Wilson, because probably one of the most popular Tyrannosaur models of all time, especially when it was released. So most people that collect PNSO probably have Wilson. Again, I figured that would be a good one to bring in to put next to our Alamosaurus. Now, PNSO doesn't release sauropods too often, but when they do, they're usually gorgeous. And you can see another, not really recently released, but one of the more recently released sauropods. We have the Lingwulong here next to our Alamosaurus, and obviously you can see the Alamosaurus is significantly taller, though both sauropod models do have some pretty decent size to them. We've also got the Safari Ltd. Diplodocus here, because I know that is another very popular sauropod model that is out to help give you another idea of the size. And the final comparison piece that I have here is the PNSO Mamenchisaurus that they had released a little ways back here next to the Alamosaurus. And I will say these two look super, super cool next to each other. So this brand new PNSO Alamosaurus is absolutely gorgeous, and honestly, it's possibly, I would say, the best sauropod model they have ever released. And they do have some really good ones, especially when you go back to those old vinyl ones they had released that were really big. Those ones were awesome. Not the best when it comes to paintwork, but for their time, they were phenomenal. And I think that's probably the only way they could have got away with a 1/35th scale version of the Alamosaurus would be to release it in one of those large vinyl models. But it seems as though currently PNSO is sticking with this type of model. And again, the decrease in size, again, the decrease in scale, leaving the 1/35th scale range, which they often follow, I'm okay with when it comes to this. I don't think it's a deal breaker by any means, especially when it comes to the model looking as absolutely drop dead gorgeous as it does, and the fact that we have so little when it comes to this species out on the market. That's just another of the many reasons that I would ignore the fact that it is not 1/35th scale and just go for it, because it still is one of the absolute best sauropod models I think I've ever seen in my entire life. The sculpt is incredible. It is absolutely as highly detailed as you are ever going to find. And when I say that, I mean, like, please try to compare anyone else when it comes to their work on a sauropod model with this from PNSO. I really don't think you could find a more highly detailed version of this dinosaur anywhere. this is honestly probably as good as it could possibly get when it comes to the fine detail. The skin texture is incredible as you move through this. There's just so much movement, so many tiny little skin wrinkles and creases in the skin that have been sculpted out on this. I can't even begin to fathom how long it must have taken to sculpt this model out, but that's again pretty much the same way I feel every time I see a PNSO release. On top of the amazing sculpting and fine detailing, we have really nice paint apps on this. They've chosen a color scheme that looks as naturalistic as it can get for a sauropod while still giving it a nice element of flashiness, and I think they've achieved it perfectly with this, and the actual application of that paint is beautifully done because they've done a great job of applying it very smooth and naturalistic because they have just the nicest application of that striping where it absolutely looks like body color and in no way, shape, or form paint on a model. And they've done such a great job of adding slight variation to the color as well as nice washes, different coloration to the washes depending on the area, again with like a beige wash in the grayish areas, but then a nice kind of darker brown wash in the lighter areas. It all ties the paintwork together to give me one of the most realistic looking and most beautiful looking sauropod models now in my collection. So if you are interested in picking this up, I will include a link in the description to exactly where you can do that. So make sure you check those links. Go grab this amazing release and also like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.